Chapter 1. If only. After Adam and Eve ate the fruit of the tree of knowledge in the Garden of Eden, their thoughts about everything changed. Their view of the universe and its creator was seen through the lens that Satan had placed on them.
Therefore, just as through one man sin entered the world, and death through sin, and thus death spread to all men, because all sinned. Romans 5:12.
God told Adam that he would die if he ate the fruit of the tree of knowledge. The question is, what would cause Adam to die?
And of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, thou dost not eat of it, for in the day of thine eating of it, dying thou dost die. Genesis 2:17, Young's literal translation.
The Bible does not suggest that the fruit itself was poisonous, nor does God indicate that he would forcibly kill Adam. Adam was simply told that he would start to die until ultimately he was dead. Death was the natural consequence, or wages, of eating the fruit. Eve observed at the physical level that the tree was good for food, but taking the fruit caused a change of mind in the eater towards God. Through the fruit, the poison of doubt about God's goodness entered the soul. The desire to eat this fruit could only occur when the thought entered their minds that God was not pure in his intentions toward them. Satan planted this poisonous seed in Eve's mind when he said,
You will not surely die. For God knows that in the day you eat of it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil. Genesis 3:4 and 5.
The Bible says that Eve was deceived by Satan's lie, but in that deception, Eve inhaled the aroma of doubt about the character of God. But while Eve had doubts and was confused, she did not in her initial actions take the step that Adam did.
An expression of sadness came over the face of Adam. He appeared astonished and alarmed. To the words of Eve, he replied that this must be the foe against whom they had been warned, and by the divine sentence she must die. Patriarchs and Prophets, page 56.2. Adam regretted that Eve had left his side, but now the deed was done. He must be separated from her whose society he had loved so well. How could he have it thus? His love for Eve was strong, and in utter discouragement he resolved to share her fate. He reasoned that Eve was a part of himself, and if she must die, he would die with her, for he could not bear the thought of separation from her. Spirit of Prophecy, Volume 1, page 39.2.
The Spirit of Prophecy states that Adam reasoned that Eve must die, but where did this reasoning come from?
Satan tempted the first Adam in Eden, and Adam reasoned with the enemy, thus giving him the advantage. Satan exercised his power of hypnotism over Adam and Eve, and this power he strove to exercise over Christ. Christ Triumphant, page 190.5.
Once Eve had eaten the fruit, she became the gateway for Satan to speak to Adam and give him reasons to doubt the Father's love. Why didn't Adam seek clarification from God as to what would happen to Eve? Especially as there seemed to be no noticeable change in Eve, nor had she lost her garment of light.
After his transgression, Adam at first imagined himself entering upon a higher state of existence, but soon the thought of his sin filled him with terror. The air, which had hitherto been of a mild and uniform temperature, seemed to chill the guilty pair. The love and peace which had been theirs was gone, and in its place they felt a sense of sin, a dread of the future, a nakedness of soul. The robe of light which had enshrouded them now disappeared, and to supply its place they endeavored to fashion for themselves a covering, for they could not, while unclothed, meet the eye of God and holy angels. Patriarchs and Prophets, page 57.1.
Why, when only Eve had eaten the fruit, didn't the air become chilled around her, and she lose her garment of light? The presence of light around Eve after she ate is evidence that although she had doubts about God, she had not crossed the line to the point that the light was driven away from her. Also the fact that Eve was part of Adam and under his headship made it so that through him she still had the blessing of light. As her protector and provider, the light of God in him was still passing to her. We might also express this as his rib, which was in her, still glowed with the light of heaven. God told Adam that in the day that he ate the fruit, he would die. Why didn't God wait until Eve was created so that he could tell this important information to both of them? Why did he tell this to Adam alone? God did this because Adam was the leader of the human race. Its destiny was in his hands. As Eve was under Adam's leadership, he might have, with her consent, disallowed her vow to follow the words of the serpent.
If a woman also vow, and if she had at all an husband, when she vowed or uttered aught out of her lips, wherewith she bound her soul, and her husband heard it, and held his peace at her in the day that he heard it, then her vows shall stand, and her bonds wherewith she bound her soul shall stand. But if her husband disallowed her on the day that he heard it, then he shall make her vow which she vowed, and that which she uttered with her lips, wherewith she bound her soul, of none effect, and the Lord shall forgive her. Numbers 30, verses 3-8, King James Version.
When Eve came to Adam, she still retained her robe of light. There was no chill in the air. In this position, Adam might have taken Eve by the hand, led her to Jesus, and explained the situation. Jesus could have told him that as her husband, Adam could decide whether to let her decision stand or to disannul it, and the Lord would have simply forgiven Eve. We remember that Eve was not told by God that in the day she ate she would die. It is true that if she rebelled against Adam, as well as God, and defied their leadership, then she would surely die. But in remaining under Adam's leadership, she might have simply been forgiven. The reality of this is underscored by what happened in heaven previously. Almost half the angels had been deceived by Satan.
Then Satan exultingly pointed to his sympathizers, comprising nearly 1/2 of all the angels, and exclaimed, "These are with me. Will you expel these also and make such a void in heaven?" Spirit of Prophecy. Volume 1, page 22.2.
But only 1/3 of the angels fell with Satan.
His tail drew 1/3 of the stars of heaven and threw them to the earth. Revelation 12:4.
When Satan became disaffected in heaven, he did not lay his complaint before God and Christ, but he went among the angels who thought him perfect and represented that God had done him injustice in preferring Christ to himself. The result of this misrepresentation was that through their sympathy with him, 1/3 of the angels lost their innocence, their high estate, and their happy home. Testimonies for the Church, Volume 5, page 291.1.
This means that around 15% of the angels returned to God. They were freely forgiven of their disaffection to God. Our Father delights in mercy and he loves his children. He doesn't desire anyone to be lost. Eve might have been freely forgiven and restored to fullness of joy. But sadly, Adam determined the case of Eve to be hopeless. He reasoned on his own that she must die. He never asked God for clarification as to the actual meaning of, "In the day you eat thereof, you shall die." Adam assumed this to be a threat of what God would do to them, rather than a loving warning of what they would do to themselves if they ate the fruit of the tree.
Had Adam and Eve never disobeyed their Creator, had they remained in the path of perfect rectitude, they could have known and understood God. But when they listened to the voice of the tempter and sinned against God, the light of the garments of heavenly innocence departed from them, and in parting with the garments of innocence, they drew about them the dark robes of ignorance of God. The clear and perfect light that had hitherto surrounded them had lightened everything they approached, but deprived of that heavenly light, the posterity of Adam could no longer trace the character of God in his created works. The Review and Herald, November 8, 1898, paragraph 3.
Adam didn't appear to entertain the idea of forgiveness. His limited knowledge of God's character led him to assume that Eve would be destroyed by their father. Adam sealed his ignorance of God's character by eating the fruit. He believed God to be exacting, without mercy or forgiveness. If he had thought otherwise, he would have asked for mercy. Like Satan, Adam never tested the forgiving love of God before he fell.
Satan had declared that God knew nothing of self-denial, of mercy and love, but that he was stern, exacting, and unforgiving. Satan never tested the forgiving love of God, for he never exercised genuine repentance. His representations of God were incorrect. He was a false witness, an accuser of Christ, and an accuser of all those who throw off the satanic yoke and come back to render willing allegiance to the God of heaven. The Review and Herald, March 9, 1897, paragraph 3.
If only Adam had asked God what to do, rather than deciding for himself, how different things might have been.
Love, gratitude, loyalty to the Creator, all were overborne by love to Eve. She was a part of himself, and he could not endure the thought of separation. He did not realize that the same infinite power who had from the dust of the earth created him, a living, beautiful form, and had in love given him a companion, could supply her place. He resolved to share her fate. If she must die, he would die with her. Patriarchs and Prophets, page 56.2.
When we read that the Creator could supply her place, it is easy to understand that this meant that God could have replaced her. This meaning can apply, but such a position comes with the collateral damage of denigrating the marriage union. Such a thought potentially teaches us that spouses are replaceable and second marriages are routine. The father and son would do everything possible to save Eve. They would not cast her away as trash. God forbid. If Eve became hardened in her rebellion, then indeed God could have provided her place with another. But the agape meaning of supply her place is for God to be in the deepest seat of Adam's affection before Eve. God would supply her place relationally. God would be first, and Eve would be second. Adam had placed his affection for Eve above that of his Maker. The Father through Christ should have supplied that place that Adam gave to Eve, and if Adam had made God first in his heart, then Adam would not have chosen the path of death. But God does not force. He can't use the word should, only the word could. Adam had free will to choose. In making the right choice, Adam would have continued to be a channel of blessing to Eve, and he might have helped her to come back to the truth and freed her from deception. But once Adam ate the fruit, their destiny was sealed. We note that the scriptures say that sin entered the world through one man, Romans 5:12, not through one woman. It was the thoughts and actions of Adam that were sin. Eve came to Adam clothed in a garment of light. She had not sealed herself in a wrong path against God, although she was in great danger. We need to explore more deeply the nature of this sin Adam committed. On the surface, we see Adam ate the fruit that he was told not to eat. That was the manifestation of his sin. But what were the inward thoughts of his heart that defiled his mind, leading him to put on the dark robes of the ignorance of God?